I'm currently the Vice Chair of the Distinguished Lecturers Committee, and I have the great honor of introducing our speaker for this evening, Mr. Giuliani. I'll also be moderating the question and answer session. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and once recognized, please state your name, your affiliation, and proceed with your question. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Rudy Giuliani.
Pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Since you're all a very diverse group, not all in one discipline or another, I think the best thing for me to do is to have you ask me questions. You can ask me questions about politics, law, baseball, or anything you would like. So who would like to go first? First question. Yes, sir.
I'll go. My name's Will Simpson. I'm a freshman here at the university studying economics and finance. And I guess if there's nobody else just dying to ask a question right off the bat, I'll ask two. You can fish that however you want. One question is, I would love to have a future in law and influencing public policy in some way. So short of being a candidate for an office or a national office, what's the best way to use the platform of law to affect public policy? And then the other question I would have is that I was homeschooled through high school and was always interested in alternative education. And I know you supported school choice in a few different ways. And I guess, what do you think the opportunities are for that in states like Arkansas?
Two good, very good questions. First of all, there are tremendous opportunities with legal education to affect public policy. It's not impossible to affect public policy without a legal education, but it makes it a lot easier. You just look at the number of lawyers in the United States Congress, right? Must be about a third in the United States Congress. Makes sense, right? They write laws. Not a bad idea to be a lawyer if you're going to write laws. And so much of our decision-making involves laws. I mean, we're a country that is surrounded by laws. We have federal laws, we have state laws, we have local laws. If you run any kind of complex business in the United States, one of the most difficult things for you to do is to comply with the law, make sure you're complying with the law. So a legal education is very valuable, obviously necessary if you want to practice law, but it's a tremendous background if you want to be in business or you want to be in government, because it's very valuable to understand the law and not just have a lawyer interpret it for you. When I was the mayor of New York, it was very helpful to me to be a lawyer, because although I had great lawyers that represented me and advised me and did the legal work for New York City, I really understood maybe a little better some of the legal challenges I would have to face in changing the economy of the city, in reducing crime in the city, in encouraging more businesses to come into the city. How can you pursue that? There are plenty of things you can do in the area of public policy and not being a lawyer. I mean, you can be appointed to office. My administration, I think I appointed 4,000 people, probably 500 or 4,000 more lawyers. Most governments have enormous numbers of people working for them, and if they have a legal background, in many cases, it's a very valuable thing to have. So I would say probably the vast majority of lawyers who are in public service or involved in public policy are not themselves elected public officials. The second question, which is a little more complex in a way. Repeat the second question so I get it right.
Well, I know that a lot of metropolitan areas like Washington, D.C. has the school choice opportunity and stuff like that.
Do you want to talk just about school choice or about homeschooling, or both?
Well, I guess both, but school choice in general. What do you think about that?
I'm a very strong believer in school choice, and I became a believer through experience, really. I got elected the mayor of the city of New York. New York City has the largest public school system in the country. About 1.1 million children are enrolled in the New York City school system. And when I became the mayor, which was in 1994, my desire, my thought was that I could reform the school system, that from within, I could get it to be a much better performing school system than it was. And I had some success, but I didn't have the kind of success that I really wanted to have, because I could never really get the management control over the teachers that is necessary to really improve a failing system. I was able to obtain it over the superintendents. They agreed to do away with tenure and to have their performance judged by their outcomes. In other words, superintendents run school districts. If the school district was doing a good job, we would reappoint the superintendent. If the school district was doing a bad job, we wouldn't reappoint the superintendent. We were able to get the principals to agree to tenure. Same thing. The principal doing a good job running a school. The school has a good record for 2 or 3 years. We give the principal a raise. We keep the principal. If the school is doing a bad job, graduation rates have gone down, absentee rates have gone up, school scores, math, English have gone down, well then we'd either put the principal on probation or we'd remove the principal, bring a new one in. I wanted the teachers to agree to that. I wanted the teachers to agree that instead of our just having lockstep salary increases for them, and instead of having a system of tenure where after 5 years you literally cannot be fired no matter how bad a job you do. And it's even worse than that, you get paid the same pay. A bad teacher gets paid the same pay as a good teacher. That made no sense to me. I didn't see how I could take a failing system where 100 of the schools in the New York City school system hadn't performed well for 20 years. So these were just very poorly performing schools. So think about if you were running a business that had a lot of factories, and 100 of your factories didn't perform well. How would you fix it? You'd hire somebody new to run the factory, and you'd probably hire a lot of new workers for that factory, because if it hasn't been performing well for 20 years, there's probably something wrong with the management of that factory, there's probably something wrong with the employee mix in that factory. They're just not up to the job of handling it the way your other factories that are performing well. You can't do that with schools. You're stuck with the teachers. And you've got to blame all of the lack of performance on the children. And of course, some of it can be blamed on the children, not all of it. And it doesn't make sense because sometimes you can be in the same area of the city with the same kind of children, with the same set of problems, maybe poor children or children without enough family guidance, or you can have 2 schools in exactly the same area, and one will perform well, and the other won't. And the reason one will perform well and the other won't, because in one you have a very good principal who's a really good leader. You've got very good inspired teachers. And the second one, they've been used to failure and they just keep replicating. So school choice, to me, is the answer. What school choice means is you let the parents decide on the school that the child goes to, not the city or county bureaucrat. Now, you are required, in most parts of America, you're required to put your child in the local school, whether the local school is a good school or a bad school, unless you have the money to pay for your child to go to a private or parochial school. And it seems to me all parents should have that choice. We're spending a great deal of money on a child's education. We spend in New York City an average of about $11,000 a year for a child's education. Special education, you could go up to $20,000, to $22,000 a year. So I would rather give that money to the parents if they're happy with the local school, fine. But if they're not, let them find another school within the school system or one of the parochial or private schools that might accept them for their child. Put the responsibility for selecting the school on the parent rather than on the bureaucrat. Because although not all parents are good parents, not all children have good parents, a large percentage of them do. And I think you would find a much better set of choices being made. And I also think you'd find these poorly performing schools kind of voted out of existence by the choices the parents make. The schools that are failing, parents will start taking their children out of those schools, and they're just going to disappear. They're going to be voted out the same way in a market economy, a bad product is voted out. People just don't buy it. And if you think about it, American higher education works that way. American higher education is based on choice. Even if people get scholarships, even if people get loans, They're not told where to go to school. They select where to go to school within certain parameters. The amount of money they have, localities, geography, all that kind of thing. But there's a lot of competition in American higher education that, that pushes the bad schools in higher education out of existence because they can't attract students any longer. They get a reputation for being terrible. Nobody's going to go pay the tuition. Whether the tuition is tuition their parents are paying, they're paying, they're borrowing money for, or they're getting scholarships for. And I think we have the right model for higher education, which is why American higher education is still very, very good. Probably still the best in the world. But our K through 12 education is not the best in the world anymore. It's not even second or third. I mean, we're really slipping. And I think the reason for it all gets down to where the decision is made about where the child goes to school. I think homeschooling is terrific for a very important reason. It involves the parent in the child's education. Anything you can do to involve parents in the education of the child, that educational system is going to turn out to be better. The thing that's wrong with most public school systems in America are that parents have very little to say. The thing that is better about homeschooling, private schools, and parochial schools is the parents have a lot more choice because they're paying the bills and they stay involved. So if you could construct a model like that for the entire school system, I think you'd find that we would revolutionize it. We would change it. We would make it a lot better. Yes?
Kelsey Barnwell, I'm a second-year law student. I want to thank you, first of all, for the role that you played in helping our country get past 9/11.
Thank you.
That's a privilege to have here. When you were a law student, what goals did you set for yourself?
When I was a law student, my goal was to be a trial lawyer. That's why I went to law school. I wanted to try cases in the courtroom. I wanted to be paramedic. And as I went through my 3 years of law school, I became very interested in joining the